good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming this afternoon. And I think we're going to start by saying a few words about our selection for the solo projects this year. My name is Kiki Mazzucchelli, and I work together with Katherine Pettiglas. And this year we decided to have a more curatorial approach to the solo projects, to have a kind of underlying theme that bound the works together. So we focused on contemporary Latin American artists who currently live and work in Europe. So in our selections there are 10 artists, and there's also Tomasello who's in the honored artist section at the entrance of the fair. And so our idea was to try to, although this is a very small sample of Latin American artists currently living and working abroad, I think we can already see from the selection that their practices is very diverse. I mean, they're not here like united by a kind of stylistic or thematic unity, but it's more like a small sample of what these artists produce. What we felt, having visited quite a lot of artists and galleries, is that many of the Latin American artists who are based abroad feel a bit more comfortable in approaching their home country's legacies, cultural legacies and specificities. And as we say in the text, in our little presentation text that's on the catalog, I think there's not like just one reason behind that. I mean, the reasons, as much as the works themselves, are very varied. So for some people, the decision to be based abroad was more of a professional decision. For others, it was the result of kind of personal bonds established over the years. Some of them are younger, some of them have been here for a longer time. Some came to study and decided to, to settle residency. So it's a really kind of very mixed group of artists. Do you want to say anything?
So I think we decided to focus on these artists. Well, my name is Katherine Pettiglas, and I'm more a collector and a patron, so I'm very much on a steep learning curve and looking at Kiki's guidance as well. But I think the reason we chose to focus on these artists living in Europe, Latin American artists living in Europe, is that actually there is quite a number of them at the moment. We had quite a large pool to choose from, and it was also interesting to understand some of the reasons why they feel that being in Europe is somewhat more inspiring than being in their home country. I think that, as we pointed out in the text, that there was a previous wave of artists from Latin America who had to live here by necessity because they were political refugees. And in fact, in the 1950s, 60s in particular, quite a large group of them had to leave Argentina, Brazil, Venezuela, because the political situation there was untenable. And so they felt they had to live here. But and often they stayed, and the reason they stayed often was that they also found a market in Europe. You can't underestimate the role of the gallerist Denise René in Paris, who gave them outlet for their work and gave them the financial sort of comfort to stay in Europe. Now, what's interesting is that this fairly large group and growing group of Latin American artists who live in Europe are now self-exiled. They've chosen to be here. Often they've stayed here because they studied here and they enjoyed the sort of intellectual stimulation that they found here, and also because they found galleries to support them. But as Kiki was saying, I don't want to repeat, of course, it's also the idea that maybe when you are living away, you have a better vantage point from which to look at your home country, at your national identity. And it can take form in many different ways, but I hope that through the selection of 10 to 11 artists that we have, we can see some of these strands.
So I'm going to start by introducing the work of Tonico Lemos Awad. I think you've probably all been to the solo projects and seen that. These works, I mean, Tonico's works are very much characterized for a kind of painstaking handicraft. So really, like the works, his works normally take ages to do. Like we don't have it pictured here, but along with those sculptures in chalk with those kind of those unusual elements that form it, Tonico is also presenting a series of wall pieces. They are made of fabric, where he kind of pulls threads from the fabric in order to construct kind of a very constructivist drawings in a way. They kind of in between constructive and figurative sometimes, but these drawings also have I think a strong dialogue with the Brazilian concrete art tradition. Maybe you can go to the next slide. This is a detail of that stone, the stone sculpture pictured in the previous slide. This one has, yeah.
These pieces have letters that are inset within the chalk, and they actually are letters taken from a poem by Pablo Neruda that he particularly admires, and so there is always this evocation of literature and poetry also.
Yeah. And I think in his work there's always like a kind of evocation of a sense of time, and also I don't know if any of you remember, but in the last Folkestone Triennial, Tonico put placed some sculptures, wooden sculptures, in the sea. So when the tide was low, you could see them, but over time they'll be covering seaweed. So there's this sense of deterioration. Like these pieces, for instance, are very fragile. You know, like it took him a long time to figure out a way of holding this chalk together, because they're extremely fragile. It's like a material that would normally deteriorate very fast. And then in the Galeria Pilar booth, we have Célio Braga, who is here with us. And Célio's been based in Holland for many years now, isn't he? 20. Oh, God. And in kind of like the same fashion as Tonico, his work is very manual. You know, like there's a lot of, you can also sense this sense of time. But in Célio's case, I think it's a sense of time that you get from actually observing the works closely, because they're very delicately made, and like he makes everything by hand. And most of this also kind of very constructivist like pieces employ kind of ready-made materials, such as like medicine, papers, and boxes. They are like, you know, painstakingly cut and made into these thin stripes and glued together. And these are sometimes interwoven with pieces of fabric. It's not like some fabric, but also like some very typically Brazilian souvenirs. Yeah, the wish ribbons from Bahia, which is a kind of ribbon that you wear around your wrist, and it's made of fabric. And over time, it deteriorates, and when it falls, your wish is granted. It's like a very common, very popular thing in Brazil. Brazilians are very superstitious, I think, in general. So his work, in his works, he uses all these materials, and they are like painstakingly constructed, and to create what are, in this case, like apparently very kind of dry or more like rigorous or very geometric constructions. But then, you know, behind it you have all these like emotional ideas and ideas of time. They're very personal. It's like the opposite of what they look like, really. They're kind of, you know, very personal objects, because as Sally was telling me the other day, these pieces of fabric are taken from friends, as are the medicine boxes. So they all relate to people he knows personally.
I think there is also a sort of impermanence about your work, in the sense that the rigid grid can also be played with and can also be sort of deconstructed. So I also enjoy this aspect of your work. So this is a work by, the booth is dedicated to Jimena Garrido Leca. She's a Peruvian artist. She shows with Max Wigram, and this is a solo project that I felt really captured the sort of the essence of our theme. This is a series of drawings of chulos, which are very typical, of course, Peruvian hats that the tourists tend to take back home. And these are drawings, they are actually photocopies, hand photocopies, on accounting paper. And this is then quite painstakingly colored by hand, by felt tip. And actually, when you look at the works physically, it looks almost three-dimensional. And then this is shown alongside, the next side, a heap of the actual chulos, the actual hats, that she brought back to London, and then she painstakingly unknit those hats. And so the hats have been made by hand by indigenous Peruvian, and she, as a Peruvian artist living in London, brings them back here and undoes the work that has been done by the indigenous communities. And so there is a certain ambiguity about this work, which I find quite interesting, because on the one hand, she seems to pay tribute to the native culture by showing objects that are visually quite enticing, and by proposing them as works of art. So on one level, you can almost look at them as sort of crafted works of art. But on the other hand, by undoing the work, she also introduces a sort of more critical aspect. And in fact, the characteristic of her work is that she also denounces, in many ways, how the indigenous communities are not integrated within the life of modern Peru. And in fact, that's her trademark. She normally always uses popular imagery and popular culture, which she brings into the institution, the gallery, or the sort of the museum. She is known in particular for doing these altars, these sort of funerary altars that you find all over Peru, and she reproduces them very painstakingly, very meticulously. She creates the bricks herself, she collects sort of paraphernalia of plastic flowers and all sorts of kitsch objects that are shown in these funerary altars. And then she showed them in particular at the Saatchi Gallery a couple of years ago. And so I think this sort of work in particular,